we live?
We are live. Well, good afternoon, Mesa Public Schools, and welcome to our Safe, Strong, Ready Facebook Live series. Today, Mrs. Holly Williams, our Associate Superintendent, and I are here to talk to you just some updates on our schools and then what we are looking forward to into the spring as we work through all of the mitigation for COVID-19 as we continue to follow the data very, very closely. So again, I am Andy Forlis. I am the very proud and honored superintendent of Mesa Public Schools, and this is our weekly opportunity to connect with our community. So we are going to be watching for questions and responding to them in real time. We do have a couple of questions that came into us ahead of time. So here we go. We're going to start off with an update on the learning model of all of our schools. So Mrs. Williams, can you talk just a little bit about that landscape of our very large district of 85 schools? What does learning models look like right now?
Thank you, Dr. Forlis, and good afternoon, everybody. I am pleased to report that our families are doing what we asked. They are practicing mitigation strategies and being as vigilant as possible when it comes to masking and social distancing. And we see evidence of that in the numbers in our district continue to decrease as far as active cases. So I wanted to say thank you for that before I jump into the learning models, because it all plays a part in that. In order for us to maintain our schools being open for a 5-day modified schedule, it requires strong mitigation both on our campuses and away. So the update that I have for you this week is we currently have all of our schools in a 5-day modified learning environment. We monitor that by school and we monitor it classroom by classroom. So while we may have a sports team or a classroom in quarantine, we currently do not have any full schools in a different learning model than the 5-day. So that's exciting. And 5-day for us means 5 days of learning with their in-person teachers. We offer, of course, we continue to offer remote learning for those students who made that choice earlier this fall. And then 5-day modified for us means that we have intense mitigation strategies still in place, which means mandatory masks, hand washing that is regular and scheduled. We have antibacterial lotion, or hand sanitizer, that's what I want to say, hand sanitizer available throughout our campuses. And we have an enhanced cleaning schedule for our custodian crew and our teachers who've been just rock stars through this to help keep our classrooms safe and clean for our students. So I can't say enough about the impact that the families and the mitigation strategies have, but I would be remiss if I did not say how amazing our teachers have been to practice those mitigation strategies and to reinforce them. So thank you for that.
You know, I'm really glad that you talked about how our employees have embraced these strategies. I had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to be in an elementary school, and I was in a 2nd grade classroom, and students are working in distanced but small groups. And now it was really interesting to watch that part of the routines among the students is a cleaning routine, and they do self-checks and they make sure that they have proper materials and that they are managing them. So it was really, really encouraging to see what that looked like in practice with our youngest learners. And they were doing an amazing job wearing their masks up and over their noses as well. So a shout out to our employees. We know that one of the strongest mitigation strategies that we had been waiting for months and months and months was vaccines. And so we are really happy to report that our staff, every member of Mesa Public Schools who would like to get a vaccine has had an opportunity to do so within our own community as well as within our state-run pods. So Mrs. Williams, you want to talk a little bit about what's happening this week and next week in terms of vaccines? This is our 2nd round of providing vaccines for our employees right here in Mesa Public Schools.
Exciting news about those pods. And when we say offering them for Mesa Public Schools, we have also, the county has asked us to extend that to our community partners as far as our private schools and our charters in the area. So if they got vaccinated with us 4 weeks ago, they are eligible to come back. And all of our employees who wanted a vaccine were given that opportunity first, and then we opened it up to those partners. So we had over 4,000 vaccines available, and we know that we gave all of those out, and we were given the same number for our second dose, and so those are happening. The county has recognized what a great partnership we have with Mesa Fire and Medical, and they made sure that we had what we needed. So what's happening this week is we have 2 pods going. We have one today at Westwood. That should be wrapping up as we speak. We, at about 2 o'clock, I got an update and we had already vaccinated over 1,000 people. So very busy day, very exciting that 1,000 people had gotten through that pod. Tomorrow we will be at Mountain View. Again, those are for second doses. And next week we will be at Red Mountain and Mesa High on Wednesday and Thursday. So very exciting to be able to offer the second doses. What we have learned also for our employees, a closed pod for Mesa Public Schools employees, is if you were not able for some reason to get your first dose when we did it 4 weeks ago, they have opened, they will be opening vaccine shots next week at our Red Mountain and Mesa High for first shot givers. So watch your email. You should have something in your inbox right now if you're an employee that would tell you that you can sign up, and you will have an opportunity to get your first shot. So we know that there were circumstances where people maybe just couldn't, for whatever reason, get their shots 4 weeks ago for the first one, and they've struggled now to find an appointment. So Mesa Fire and Medical worked with the county to get additional shots for that to be a possibility. So that's a very exciting thing. Additionally, if these pods don't work for you, we have partnered with Tempe Union High School District to offer a first shot pod this weekend, and you will be seeing some information come to you also this afternoon or tomorrow morning regarding that pod, and that will be Friday and Saturday of this weekend for first shots. And there's a very specific, it's a closed pod only for Mesa Public Schools and Tempe Union employees, but the opportunity for our employees to get that. So very exciting things. The other thing that we are working towards is allowing anybody in Group 1B to get first or second shots, and the county is releasing those as there are shots available. So you can check in, and sometimes you might find a shot space at, if you're 65 or older and fit into the 1B category, you might find that you get an invitation to go to or have an opportunity to go to one of our pods. And so look for that. The AZDHS site updates those daily depending on availability.
So that is a lot of information about vaccines. We know it's so important. If I think back a year ago, I can't imagine that today we would have been talking about vaccines and have such a plethora of knowledge. One of the things that we know that COVID-19 has done has reinforced what's most important to our communities, which we know is the health and safety of our community. And in order for a large organization like Mesa Public Schools to administer the volume of vaccines that we have, we couldn't do it without those very important community organizations, as Mrs. Williams talked about this afternoon. So definitely one of the things that we're going to continue to celebrate and pull forward with us into the future is the importance of our relationships with the city of Mesa, Mesa Fire and Medical, and and even other school districts. So definitely the spirit of we're all in this together.
Dr. Furlis, I'd also like to say our nurses are playing a large role in this. Our school nurses, we have a team of nurses who are manning these vaccine clinics right along with Mesa Fire and Medical, and they're administering the shots. And then we have a whole nother list of volunteers who have said, I'll come over there and I'll help manage the lines, I'll help with parking, whatever you need, I'm there. And so the ability for us to do this really rests in the goodness in the hearts of our employees who've said, this is important and I need to help, and that they've stepped up to do that. So we appreciate that.
We do have a question coming in about vaccines. And the question is, are employee vaccines mandatory? And they are not. Vaccines are not mandatory. We did do a survey early on prior to the release of vaccines to us, asking, are you interested? And we had 75% of our Mesa Public Schools staff said that they were interested in getting the vaccine. So we have done everything within our power to bring those vaccines to 75% of our staff that are interested and willing and ready to get those doses. We do have a self-reporting form that will continue to be shared. So as soon as you get your second dose, You go into a Google form and you just fill out your name that you have and the dates that you have received your vaccines. That's just another layer for us to help us with our contact and tracing and understanding what the landscape looks like for those who have been vaccinated, but it is not mandatory for our employees. And we have not had any conversations about what vaccination for COVID-19 will look like with students when they become available. So it's important. So thank you for that question. It gave us a good opportunity to clear that up. So let me just also mention that we know that the Arizona Department of Health Services website can be a little cumbersome and a little difficult to navigate. If somebody is running into trouble, what would you recommend for them, Mrs. Williams?
Right there on the website, there is a helpline number that you can call, and they are staffed at the Arizona Department of Health for to help people through that. They recognize that their website is difficult to navigate, and so that's our first line of defense: is call that number and get the help. It says on there if you're 65 and older and you need help. And some people think, well, that means I can't call if I'm younger and I'm having trouble. But the reality is call if you're having trouble, because that is manned by somebody who can help you make your appointment. So that would be my first line of defense. If they are an employee and they just have a question about the process, they can use the email that comes in the invite to sign up. That's the vaccines@mpsaz.org. That's for just questions. That's not necessarily the technical help to get you signed in. We will try and help you if we can, but the best place to get that kind of help is the AZDHS staff.
You know, and some of you might be thinking about an employee that you know who may not have access to a computer in their home. It is certainly absolutely acceptable to use a district computer to sign up for these vaccines. So please, we want to remove all of the barriers for those who are interested in getting the vaccine. That has been a high priority goal for us. And I'd like to say we set a very high bar and we ran towards it. And we said, we're going to get this done and remove any barriers that get in our way. So please, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. The website is vaccine@mpsaz.org, correct?
That's an email. So that's just if you have a question. So
okay.
AZDHS, or excuse me, it's called like podvaccines. I have to look that up. I'm sorry. That's not on the top of my brain. But our employees and those who got their vaccines with us got an email inviting them. So it should be coming to them via email. I will say also, you brought up a good point that district computers can be used for this. Our offices, just as they do for all the time, they have community use computers available typically for re-registration and stuff, re-enrollment. We are happy to, if somebody can come into a lobby all masked up and they just need to use the computer quickly to get their vaccine, we're happy to help that way also.
Absolutely. So we want to make sure that we are very accessible and trying to make these vaccines accessible to those who are interested in getting them. So we've talked a lot about mitigation and in terms of vaccines, and we know that the CDC came out with some new guidelines. Are there any things that we should be aware of in Mesa Public Schools about those new guidelines and how they would impact us here?
I tell you, it feels like maybe we should celebrate our communications and engagement department and our health and safety design team, because I think that the CDC could call their plan Safe, Strong, Ready. We feel like we are right on track with what the CDC is asking. Mandatory masks, keeping physical distancing 6 feet to the greatest extent possible, and when you can't, do the very best you can by putting students in rows facing forward. They're very specific about the things that we've already said that this would be important to us. They stress the importance of students being back in school, and that's been Mesa Public Schools' philosophy all along. They talk about hand washing routines. They talk about making hand sanitizer available. We do all of that. You know, I'm the parent of a preschool teacher in our district, and I can tell you that hand washing comes with a routine, procedure, and a song. So all of those things happen in preschool, and they're teaching them young how to do that the right way. And so, you know, I feel really good about the mitigation, and I'll tell you, we have evidence that it works. And so I would hope that maybe some of the schools across the country who have been reluctant to reopen because of being, nervous about, rightly so, nervous about the numbers, could call and we could share with them that if you do this the way that we've done it, we see success in keeping the numbers of positive cases down in our schools.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And this has definitely been a huge lift across our district. But again, the appreciation to our staff, to our students, to our families who are following along and living into those mitigation strategies so we can keep our doors open for those who choose that. Um, so we've talked a lot, and oftentimes in our most recent meetings, we keep saying, I think we might be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. We are getting back to having different conversations around what can the spring look like, conversations around what are we going to do around summer school, what are we going to do to support our kids who have lost some learning opportunities. So let's just take a peek into what we think the spring might look like. And let's start off with graduation. We know that, boy, that was so rough on our community, so rough on all of us, that our schools closed. We had an executive order from the governor in March of 2020 that we are going to close to in-person instruction. That then spilled over to graduation in May, and that was a tough time. So before we know it, it's going to be May and it's going to be graduation. So can you talk a little bit about what we're thinking and some of the communication that we're having and meetings that we're holding?
Yes. So we have communicated to our community that we very much would like to hold in-person graduation. And that all depends on what the pandemic is doing in May. So we need continued help. You'll hear this, I'm a broken record when it comes to mitigation. We can't let up because we see light at the end of the tunnel. We need to be just as vigilant. And that will allow us to do things like in-person graduation. So our goal will be to hold outdoor events as we have for years and years here in Mesa. We may have, we may use more of the football field because we'll have to spread people out further apart. And we may have to limit tickets, unfortunately, just depending on what the pandemic is looking like. But our goal would be, if at all possible, to hold in-person graduation. So I say that with knowing that we need the help of our community to be able to make that happen, so that our numbers are in an area that it would be safe to do that.
I think that that's a sigh of relief for many families, and of course that would be a choice to participate in an in-person graduation. We want to make sure that that is something that is memorable and an opportunity to celebrate our kids during a very, very, very unusual year. So
Can
thank
I
you.
share one other thing? We've always
Of
live
course.
streamed our graduations anyway, so that would be, of course, a priority that we would have again this year, to live stream it, so that if we do have to limit attendance, that those who would like to watch that and watch their loved ones participate in the ceremony still would have the opportunity. So that would be a continued component, not a new component for us, because we've done that in the past.
Excellent. And oftentimes in this spring, there's a lot of awards and ceremonies and ceremonial events that happen at schools. Can you talk a little bit about what we're communicating with our school leaders about that as well?
Yes, we are. We're telling our school leaders to plan those with heavy mitigation in place. Physical distancing, limiting crowds, holding them outside when possible. We are very fortunate to live in Arizona, where the weather would allow us to hold some of these outside, depending on the time of the year. So we are moving forward with the recognitions and some of the traditional activities that we do at our schools, just knowing that it can't look exactly the same as it's always looked, but we should be able to create an opportunity to celebrate the accomplishments and the great achievements that our students have had this year. So we're talking, when we're talking these kind of things, I'm thinking that the spring play may happen, the spring concert, the awards assembly, the promotion ceremonies, all of those things with perhaps limited audiences. Perhaps we have to run two of them because there's too many kids to do in one, but moving forward with planning on how we could do that safely.
And I appreciate that you talk about these different ideas. I mean, we have a goal to do as many of them as we can as safely as possible. And as safely as possible, our big challenge is around that 6 foot physical distancing. And we know that. And so we are using every resource that we have. And we are doing the very best job that we can with that physical distancing. And so that requires us to limit our groups. So can you talk a little bit about, we know that the Arizona Interscholastic Association, AIA, came out with some guidance around spectators. That was just very recently. So they left it up to school districts to make decisions. So another one for you, Mrs. Williams.
Yes, we think it's important for there to be spectators at games, and so we were very thankful when the AIA they went from having nobody to allowing each player to have 2. And then they opened it up for schools to make a decision. So we've allowed each player to continue to have 2, and we've allowed the visiting team to have 2, which is new in the past couple of weeks, because before it was just the home team. So we're going to move forward with that and watch how that goes for us and see if that impacts our numbers or anything, and then pay attention to what it looks like for spring sports, because we know that more of our spring sports are outdoor sports, and could we perhaps expand that? But that'll be an ongoing conversation. So for now, each athlete, both home and away, has two visitors that they can have, or spectators with them. And we're looking forward to spring sports starting on March 1st.
Yes, and not only for high school, but also can you give the starting time for junior high sports?
We have a celebration that our junior high sports will begin again, and we will do our 4th quarter sports starting right after spring break. So we're excited about that, the opportunity for our junior high to get back in. Of course, they will follow the same mitigation strategies that the AIA has in place. Currently, the AIA has in place that students will wear masks during competition. They will be reevaluating that right before spring sports start. And so we will, whatever the standard is at the time, we will apply that to junior high sports at that time.
And sports is an area of concern across the country. When we bring groups of children and young adults and their coaches together and they have close contact for an extended period of time, we know that that's a risk. And that's why we keep talking about, that they are wearing masks, that we are doing everything that we can to keep those sports alive and well for our kids. Because that is a significant portion of many of our children, as well as their families' commitment to what schooling looks like for them. So we know that is a risk, but we are watching it very, very, very closely and watching those mitigation strategies.
Can I add something on that? I'm sorry,
please,
Dr. Forless.
Please.
I think it's important for folks to know that it's not just a Mesa Public Schools rule around that mitigation. That's by AIA, and they give us very specific guidelines about how many positive cases can happen on a team before you have to quarantine the team, and it's a very low bar. So please know that when we make a decision to quarantine a basketball team, that's not done just by Mesa Public Schools. The AIA says any team with 25 or fewer players who have 2 positive cases, that means it's a quarantine situation and they're not allowed to participate in the sport and they should be quarantined. So there are very specific guidelines for teams, and they're very, like I said, very low bars. So I think that's important for our community members to know.
We talked a lot about vaccines, and there's a lot of chatter in Facebook and people going back and forth. Really not a lot of questions about vaccines, but some chatter about it. But what we haven't talked about today is testing. We want to talk a little bit about the testing opportunities that are available right here in the center of our community.
Yes, we do. We have a testing site available at Mesa High. For those of you who've been in Mesa a long time, if I say this phrase, you're going to know exactly where I'm talking about. I'm going to say the old driving range. And that's not golf. That's where we used to teach driver's ed. And so it's to the north of the campus, right there, right beside Franklin East and right behind Mesa High. There's a parking lot there that we used to use for driver's ed. And we have a mobile testing site set up there through Paradigm Labs. Thank you. And they are open, I believe right now, Mondays through Saturdays, and 10 to 6 each day, I think, is their hours of operation. Labfinder.com, I believe, is the right website for you to find them, and look for Phoenix area, and then it should get you to that Mesa High site. It will have it in there. So please know that is open to the community. It's free. You must have an appointment, and it is the nasal swab. It's not the saliva. But what's very exciting about this testing site is that you have your results in less than 48 hours. And for most people, it's between 24 and 30 hours. I mean, you usually get them the next day. So it just depends on what time of day you get your test, if it pushes it to the following day. But I will tell you that the people who have gone have been thrilled to death with how fast they turn around the test is. So if you have a student who is sick and not feeling well, and you're like, oh shoot, this means 10 days they have to stay home. This gives you an opportunity to go get a test and have the results very quickly, and show that whether or not they're positive or not. And it is a PCR test. It's not what we would call a rapid test. It's a PCR test, which is the gold standard for COVID testing. But the good news is Paradigm is able to turn those around really quickly, and you have your results very fast.
Thank you. Yes, I want to just make sure that we added testing as part of our repertoire. We do have a question around when we were talking about athletics, and I was talking about, we know that there's a risk involved. And so there's a question about, so why even risk it? And I think it's important to share that this is a choice. Families choose whether or not, children choose whether or not they want to participate in sports, certainly not mandatory. And we are watching it very closely as we've talked about all of the layered strategies with AIA having the really conservative and strict guidelines around what it takes to quarantine a team. We pay attention to that very, very closely. So we know that absolutely it is a choice. I don't know if you want to add anything else to that, Mrs. Williams.
I do, because we know that many students come to school for things beyond math and English and social studies and science. They come because they love to be in the play. They love to be in the choir, and being a baseball player is their dream. And that's what really motivates them to do well in all of their classes, because they want the opportunity to participate in these extra things. And so it's an engagement strategy also to keep our athletes and our performers and our artists engaged in school, what's in their heart to do and what's so important for them to do, beyond what we're teaching them academically. So I think that athletics play a key role in the social emotional well-being of our students, and as do performing arts and the visual arts and all things school. We know that Dr. Furlis was in a school last week, and she talked about those second graders. And when she asked them, what's exciting, and they just said, being around my friends, just being in school is exciting. And so we know the value that school plays, and the social part of it is so important.
It really is. And thinking about all of the decisions that we need to make during the time of COVID, we take all of these decisions very, very, very seriously. As we close up, I'm looking at the clock. We've got about 2 minutes, and that's our time at 4:30. Earlier on in our Facebook Live sessions, we had a need, and our need was for additional substitute teachers. And so every opportunity that we had, we said, please, please, if you're interested in becoming a substitute teacher, please contact our human resource department, and we will get you signed up to become a substitute. So if you're interested, we are still hiring substitutes, and we've got the best rate around. The other, I have a new ask of our community. We are in enrollment season right now. And we know that the enrollment in some of our schools is lower than what it was at this time last year. We have families that have made other choices. They've chosen to keep their kids home and to homeschool them, or have looked for other options. Please, if you know of a family that is not sure about what they're going to do for next year for schooling, please encourage them to reach out to their local school so that they can learn about the programs that are at that school so that they can get enrolled. If you also know of children that have become disengaged, that they are not participating, maybe they're a remote learning and they're a learner and they're not participating at the level that we would hope for in their remote classes, please reach out to them and ask them to contact their school. We want to make sure that we are taking very good care of the children that we get to see every day, but I worry every single day about the health and the wellness and the learning of all of our kids, even those who are not closely engaged with us right now. There is no blame, there is no shame. We just want to welcome you back with open arms. So please share that message in your communities, in your friend groups, in your circle groups. If you know of any children that are looking to enroll and need to get connected, we are here. We have 85 enrollment centers called schools. So get them into a school and we will support them in any way that we possibly can. We have counselors, we have social workers, we have access to those with food insecurities. We can help to navigate if families are looking for some stable housing. So we are more, as Mrs. Williams said, we are more than just reading, writing, and arithmetic. We are a service that is so important to our community, and we have a lot of access to resources and to community partners, as we talked about earlier. So I'm going to take another peek to see if we've got any last minute questions rolling in. Still just a lot of chitter chatter on Facebook. We appreciate your time. We thank you so much. And we are so proud to be a part of Mesa Public Schools. And we're so glad that you were able to join us today. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye, guys.